It's my first demo ever of Defract. I'm going to be doing it end to end. But first, before we get into that, I just want to explain why I started building this application. So as I would say, a lot of you guys, I've started building with AI a while back, early 2025, I would say. And I gotten pretty good at it. I started out with Cursor, but then I figured out that that was just VS Code with an agent in it. And so I use it. I just migrated away to Claude Code. And then in Claude Code, I started spinning up sub-agents and then skills and then hooks and all of that and just keep upgrading my development environment. And it got to a point where I could deliver on a lot of tasks, but it was just chaotic. I was delivering on 10 to 15 things a day, but I had a number of issues. And I guess the first issue that I had was just cognitive load. I used to get to the end of the day and was completely exhausted because I was running like 20 different terminals and having all of these loose ideas hanging around. And I used to type stuff into a terminal that had nothing to do with what I was typing. And so it's just chaotic. And even the way that Claude Code was giving me stuff to review was too loaded. I was looking at code diffs and all of that. So it was just a bit chaotic. The other main issue that I also had was the fact that I was developing everything on the same branch. So I was kind of using a Git trunk strategy. But the problem is that when you're developing with a lot of speeds, then overlap becomes a problem. Testing becomes flaky. There's just a lot of issues with that. And manually managing Git work trees sucks. It's just not about creating, deleting the Git work tree. It's about the fact that if you have a long-lived work tree, you have to keep it updated. You have to be solving conflicts and all of that. And there's real considerations around that if you want to get to speeds. The other issue that I noticed was that I didn't want to spend more time in Linear or Jira anymore because it felt to me like it takes me 10 minutes to implement a task. Why should I open it in a backlog and describe it when it's just going to be, I'm going to blaze through it. And the problem with that is that a lot of the times I had ideas and I just wrote it in a notepad and it became a mess really quickly. And so I really felt like there's a need for a Agentic IDE, which is not VS Code with an agent, is something that is built for purpose for the fact that doing code with this speed brings a new category of problems. And an IDE like VS Code is not going to solve that category of new problems because it wasn't built for speed. And that's what I'm trying to do here with Defract. So the idea of Defract is really simple, is for you to be able to deliver a significant amount of tasks with the lowest cognitive loads possible and the least amount of issues, whether that's scope drift issues, whether that's Git sync issues, whatever that is. I'm just trying to lower cognitive loads and lower the amount of issues that speed creates. And of course, my flavor is always Claude Code. So the first compatible agent with Defract is Claude Code, but I'm going to be shipping Gemini. I'm going to be shipping Codex, open codes, whatever agent, CLI agent that you want to run, you should be able to run it, right? And by the way, Defract is a local environment for development. This is not agents running in my cloud to accomplish tasks for you and doing pull requests. I'm going to be honest. I think that flavor might work for some people. It doesn't work for me. I don't like it. I like to see the agents running on my desktop or my laptop and be able to test it locally like a true developer. And just drawing from my experience of running development teams at scale in my startups, that's the flavor that I love. You have a local development environment that enables you to run really fast. So I'm going to run you through a demo of the main features. Of course, the primary feature with Defract is the ability to run a task end-to-end with the lowest cognitive loads possible. And how do we accomplish that? Basically, a task is created out of a description or out of a prompt. You can think about this as a prompt, or you can import it from an existing system that you might have. It could be Linear or Jira, doesn't matter. As long as you have an URL or you have an MCP server, you just paste the ID and the agent is going to get it, right? And once you create a task, what happens is, let's say I'm going to create a very simple task, which is I want to center the defract logo on the app. So what happens is that the pipeline starts running. So what you just witnessed was that an agent was spawned. So you can see that is Claude Code running, and an agent was spawned. And the defract IDE is split in two areas. One is the agent, so you get to interact with the agent, get to basically do the same things that you can do with Claude Code and Gemini and all of that. But you also have on the right-hand side, you have what I call the intelligence pane. And the intelligence pane is the way I figured out to reduce cognitive load. So you see here on the top that the task is going to move from scope to design to architecture to implementation to review and then to release. Not all stages are mandatory. It depends on the task type. But the fact is that I have a concrete strategy, plan, agent, and assets that are created throughout all of the stages, and that builds up the task. So the task is actually handed over from agent to a specific strategy and with specific prompts that the agents are going to run and to deliver that task. So you could see that really quickly the agent came back and said, what we're building, what is the expected outcome, and what is out of scope. And a new button just popped up, which is approve initial scope. So if I click there, what's going to happen is a new agent is going to spawn. So this new agent now has the benefit of already having a scope preview approved. I could have had a conversation with Claude Code and going back and forth, but he already has that context available, and now he's going to deep dive into the code base and figure out what's happening here. And the idea is that you run through the different stages. I'm going to show you a task that is currently in implementation. So it ran through scope, design, architecture, and it's now implementation. And you can see that implementation for this task is actually 3 phases. Each phase is contained and testable. And once the agent delivers on that phase, he also spawns a new manual test list. And the idea here is that if you want to test, if you want to prove out that the code is running, you can just click here where I clicked on the bottom. And now you have the path for this worktree. And you can launch your application from this worktree and test with these criteria. So you basically just follow these steps. You just follow these steps, and you get to see what was approved, what was implemented, right? And then you approve and continue, or you request changes and go on and so forth. And then on the review step, you get security review, you get code performance review, and all of that, right? So it just goes through the full pipeline, right? There's a number of things that make this work. One of the things that really makes this work is memory. So I implemented this notion of memory because one of the things I figured out was that as my projects evolved, I wasn't doing a good job of keeping my ClaudeMD and other types of files that are definitional files updated over time. And so I implemented this notion of memory in Diffract that is project-based. And you get project facts, you get preferences, decisions, workflows, mistakes, whatever. And the agents basically create these memories. And then these memories get injected into follow-up tasks. And then based on how useful they were, you can see here there's a helpful column, and memories either rise in importance or decay over time. And we have a subset of limited spaces in memory so that you always want to keep the most important things alive and just decay everything else because projects evolve, because some things are more important than others, right? And I feel like this really helps to bring the level of quality of code and what's being delivered. It really helps improving in that, right? Now, another feature that this has is an agentic backlog. And I mentioned that a lot of the times we have these ideas and that we don't stop to write it down and all of that. So I made it really easy with Diffract. You can just say, I want to center the logo of the app once again. And what's going to happen is that goes into the backlog. That's just an idea. It can be a lot of text or no, it could be images. It doesn't matter. The idea here is that now an agent is running. So this agent runs in the background and is grooming your backlog as we speak. And so it's figuring out, is this a bug, a task, or an improvement? What is the epic? What are the modules that we should attach this to? What is the size? Labeling it, and even deduplicating it against the existing backlog or previous tasks that you delivered on, right? And this is really important because grooming the backlog is something that as developers, we've always wanted someone else to do it, and no one ever did it. And we ended up in this scenario where we had a massive backlog and no one knew what was in there. And having an agentic backlog is something that has been really helping deliver on this. So a couple of other features really quick. Of course, you have all of your tasks. Historically, you can then delete them or archive them forever, whatever. But you get to keep all of your tasks. And so you have this task complete screen that shows you everything that was done. But you can actually go back and see everything that was part of the task, right? Because what happens is that the tasks exist on file. They have a state and they have a markdown for the task. And this means that you have full traceability, that you can even do things that are really cool. We fixed this, but actually let's create a follow-up task because this wasn't really fixed, or I want to change or something. So this notion of context keeps evolving over time. I've always been an analytics guy. And what's really interesting to me is that we can get to massive speed. And I've ran hundreds of developers, and I know the average speed a developer is going to deliver on story points. And I can see that with Diffract, I'm delivering 10, 15, 20 times more than a normal developer would. We're talking about 20, 30 points a day if we really devote 8 hours a day to building. And the whole point is there's a new category of problems that emerge when you get to this level of speed. I'm building Diffract right now for solo builders or for small teams, but my plan is actually to expand it to bigger development teams and also solve speed problems that arise when 10 people are working on the same project, or 20 people or 50 people. So my focus is really simple, which is there's a new set of problems based on speed. I don't think the previous generation IDEs solve those problems, and I'm out there to solve those problems right now with Diffract. That's my goal. So I hope you enjoyed this demo. There's a lot more under the hood that I don't have the time to share on this demo, but just reach out. I'm also accepting closed beta registration. So just check out our website and you can register for the closed beta as well. Thank you for your time and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.